Yeah, good. So, good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Yogesh Agiwal, and I'll be the facilitator for today's session. We have been running this, bi-monthly webinar for close to now 3 years. This is our 18th webinar, and every month, every 2 months, actually, we do it every alternate months. We bring in like variety of topics. At times, we also bring in some leaders from the industry. Like we had one of the sales, Ramesh Dorairaj, coming in next in January. We are inviting Harish. So we have some of the people who are in niche in that area also come in for the webinar. But otherwise, most part, I do it myself. From crossover, as I'll give you a brief introduction about that also. And then today's topic is talent attraction program is the name. Which when I first was thinking about this program, and we've been running this for our clients for quite some time. It's not new program that we are launching, but we what I realized in is that while this looks to be a very simple activity, यार इंटरव्यू में है क्या मतलब you have the resume, you have the candidate, जाके बात कर लो and you hire them. But in reality, if you see the number of wrong hires, and if you look at the statistics, is like very, very damaging for the company and for the candidate also, because you're possibly losing the time of the candidate as well as your own organization. So can we put a science behind that? And there is a science that is available to all of us. And today's session would be to, in a very systematic manner, take you through the program. So not only to avoid wrong hires, but agar suppose if you want to hire somebody who you really want to hire, and the person has got multiple choices, he's got offer from maybe 2 or 3 places. So why should he choose you? And what we have seen is that money is not the only criteria where people decide to finally choose the organization. So there are many other elements, and how can you systematically use that to your advantage? So we have tried to bring in Robert Cialdini ka 6 principles of influence to really see how you can influence the candidate to join you. Yeah. So it's a very systematic approach that we will go through. So I'll as always I'll use a deck as a supporting to the webinar, but feel free to ask, stop me anytime. It is not like a one-way download. I have got placeholders to also get you to speak in between, but otherwise feel free to so typically I keep the webinar till about 5:15, 5:20 ke aspas. Then 10 minutes are there for any open questions, anything that you want to ask in general. Yeah, so we'll make it interactive also, but otherwise at the end, you can be open forum where you can ask any question. Yeah. And I can see, I want to thank a lot of people who have been coming to our webinar almost every time, and I really want to thank all those patrons to keep encouraging, because generally webinar mein itna pull khichna is not easy. So but we have got like now close to 40 people joining. So I can see a lot of people coming, and thanks to all our customers who have joined us today. So let me share the screen and start the webinar. So we are calling this as leadership chaska webinar, and chaska is nothing but in Hindi it means addiction, but इसका मतलब यहाँ पे है crossover hosted association for skills and knowledge advancement. तो it's a very not a very registered entity as such, but ये हमारा internal way है to share the knowledge and get you addicted to leadership. And there is a nice WhatsApp group where we already have lots and lots of people who joined in, and I'll ask Yogini to share the WhatsApp joining link, so you can join that group. So next about 2 months or maybe 6 weeks, you will have some post about the topic, which means that say the model that we will cover today, you will get a chance to practice that. You will get a chance to ask Yogini that yaar aapne ye bataya webinar mein, I think it's not working in my organization. So then we will have Yogini help you with clarification. She will get in touch with one of our facilitators to connect with you. So the whole idea is that we don't want to just give gyan and go away. We are very committed to being with you guys to really apply this in your organization. तो अगर हम लोग जो भी बता रहे हैं, अगर कभी भी आपको लगा कि it's not working, please let us know through the Leadership Chaska WhatsApp group. That's a very nice way to get connected. And a brief about Crossover Leadership Journeys. It's a 8-year-old organization. We specialize in longer journey-based approach, and the tagline is building leaders at all levels, which means that we have programs for the top leadership. We have got psychometric assessment, we have got assessment centers, we have got coaching. So it's like a one-stop shop for leadership development. So if you look at this slide, any organization, you can have like two axes to it. One is the journey of an organization, and another is the success level of an organization. So since it is a program on talent, you can see that people hire from all over the country or all over the world, and you have everybody coming with their own mindset. So एक पुणे का बंदा is little different than somebody from US or somebody from UK or somebody from Chennai or somebody from Pondicherry. Everybody has their own experiences. So obviously in a company, there is a culture of hybrid culture that gets created and you get a certain result. But when we do an intervention, we look at their mindset, we look at their immunities to change, and try to bring in alignment in their mental model and create an aligned culture that gives a much more higher result than if you were not to do the intervention. And if you look at any organization, you would need three things. You would need customers, you would need talent, you would need execution. So when you look at customers, how your sales organized, how are you doing consultative selling, how are you negotiating, how are you growing your accounts, how are you persuading, influencing, networking. So we have a 6 months program, for sales, for customer handling, and many variants of that for frontline sales, for account managers, for client partners. So we've got different modules for that. When you look at talent, a lot of managers really don't have got trained on how do you systematically develop talent. So we've got contextual leadership, communication, humble inquiry. There is very beautiful research, and in every program, I always recommend some of the other book that everybody should read. So there is a very beautiful research by Edgar Sheen, which talks about humble inquiry, and this is a skill that I think every leader, everybody should learn, because you can apply this in every aspect. Which means that as a manager, when I'm having communication, can I use this humble inquiry to know more about what people are thinking versus putting my own agenda all the time? Yeah. Meaningful engagement, inspiring career conversation, giving, receiving feedback. These are the modules on the talent side. And then last is execution, which is, are we executing only to the promise to the client, or are you creating excellence? Which means how much of ownership I'm taking. If you look at stakeholders, most of stakeholders are not very happy about the way they get updates, they get communicated, and they don't really trust their team. So how can you build trust with the stakeholders? And how do you influence and how do you collaborate? So these are on the execution side. Now, collaboration can happen if there is a common purpose in the organization. So many a times, a lot of founders, start the organization with great purpose, but over the years, when the organization grows, I think the new people are not aware of the purpose that the founders started with. So how do you really live the purpose? How do you live the values? What is your culture saying about your values? Is your strategy aligned to your culture? So we do a lot of work in this space also to help our customers get better at that, and with an overarching big picture thinking and growth mindset. Now, to do this, we have got various elements. We've got offsites, we've got videos, articles, supervisor involvement. We have got 360 days. So pretty much, you can see HR consulting, sales coaching, executive coaching, and since we are deeply rooted in human beings development, we have also a very deep psychological base, which means we are using William Marston's DISC, Eric Burns' transaction analysis, and Adlerian psychology. So, you can read about it if you like, but the participant really does not know about all that. They only know the transformation that is embedded in the content. Yeah. And as I was saying earlier, we do all these programs in a journey format, which means we have program for senior leadership, mid-level, frontline, campus hires, and we look at leadership from four dimensions, self-leadership, team leadership, operational and organizational. So when the participant comes out of the program, he is like very holistic in the way he looks at it. And then we run it like in a very systematic manner. Every month there are workshops. Then there is a mentor who works with them to apply it in real life. Then they come for the next module. Then they can continue. Invite the leaders of the organization to come. It's a very beautifully way to develop people. Yeah. So we have been, as I was saying, we have some ready-made programs. So you can see this slide, which has got like four programs: senior leadership, emerging leaders, foundation leaders, and campus leaders. So you can see nice modules, and this, when you go to our website, also you can see this. These are all typical modules for that level, but we also have an in-house content team, so we can customize that. Yeah. So this was a brief, I think, 5 minutes, overview of what we work. And as I was saying, we have been doing webinars for last 3 years without a miss. Every 2 months, we are like, as a company, बहुत ही disciplined company है. So we always have been doing this, and we are really finding this to be a great way to connect to new customers, create value for our existing customers, and keep creating buzz in the system. Yeah, we are live and kicking. So you can see very nice topics: conversational intelligence, unleashing productivity is one of our best program that we tell our clients to always run for their organization, because we almost guarantee you about 15 to 20% of extra bandwidth if we do that. Yeah. Networking, executive presence, humble inquiry, meaningful engagements. Yeah. And all this that you see on the left hand side is not like picked up from any book or internet. It's all like homegrown. You can see all this engage model created by our own content team. Yeah. Because we always felt that, I think, the way we have seen our Western, counterparts like Harvard Business or Vital Smarts or Franklin Covey, they are so good at creating, world-class content. So can we also do the same thing in India, at an affordable price? Because you just can't afford the price point of any of these international brands. So hence we have really been enjoying this whole journey of creating our own, powerful content. Yeah. So let's jump on to today's, webinar, which is, the talent attraction program, or we can also call it, some clients call it as hire the best. And let me first start by asking this question, like in your own experience, as hiring managers or HR professionals, how do you identify the best hire? Meaning, how would you know that you should that you attract him to join? So one is that, how do you know that the talent is good? And second is, how would you attract him or her to join your organization? So you could put it in the chat window, or you could even unmute it. And so I think Yogini also sent the WhatsApp, so you can ask you can share any thoughts on how do you identify the best hire? Meaning, how would you know that he's a good hire that I'm hiring? And how would you attract to join your organization? Yeah. So maybe I can just unshare for a moment. You can also unmute if you like to speak, and if you don't want to type, anybody on this two question. Yeah. Okay. Sushil, thank you. Hire for will and train for skill. Okay. So you're saying you will only look at the will part, but not the skill part so much.
No, I'm saying, let me just explain in a minute or two.
Yeah.
Particularly coming from the army background, we have a system where when we recruit people through it's a very long process, of course.
Yes.
And you look for the trust part, that is this man trustworthy? Because in our organization, trust is most important.
Yes.
So therefore, but in the corporate, there's not much of a way of even identifying the trust factor or the will factor.
Yes.
And we just go in for all in your interviews, in your bios, in your resumes, you're only talking of performance. and
Yeah.
performance. So you can train a person even later, but if you get a demotivated person, he may be very good in the knowledge, but if he is not able to, he's not motivated, he'll not work. So
Yeah.
my 19 years that I've been into leadership training, now I feel ट्रेन तो हम उसको कर लेंगे बाद में भी, स्किल तो सिखा सकते हैं, लेकिन if you get a demotivated person, to motivate him is more difficult. That's
Yes, yes, yes. Very nice. Very good answer. Thank you, Sushil. Sorin says 70% match to the JD and 30% correct attitude. Okay. How do we tap? I follow his journey so far and his achievements. Things candidate wanted to implement but was not able to. Very nice, Sorin. Yeah, very good. Very good answer. Yeah. Patricia, hire primarily based on their experience and during interviews, look out for personality match with the organization. Perfect. Yeah. So good. I can see Bala, our existing staff are our recruiters because they know about our job descriptions better than anybody. Very nice. Yeah. Only thing, Bala, what happens is that maybe the existing staff may not be the people who will actually interview. Sometimes somebody else. So hence, there could be a chance. This program essentially, when we do for our clients, we recommend that we do it for all. We do it for HR BPs, we do it for the talent acquisition, and we do it for the hiring managers, because then there is a beautiful handshake between the three. Otherwise, I have seen that the experience of hiring is a little disjointed in that case. Yeah. I can see Sandeep, Indrajit hire for attitude, evaluate for some level of competency, and organize, cultivate, and train for specific skills. Yeah, very good. Sandeep, yeah, you can say hire based on product projects. So very good. I think good answers. What we will do, is that we will try to also bring in some elements of how do you bring in some of the structures. And I don't know if you all have heard about the STAR technique. If you're not, or even if you've heard about it, are we really practicing that? We will try to look at that. So if you look at this slide, I think the implications of a wrong hire is quite high. So if you do the right hire, he's really trying to contribute to the right decision. But imagine if you don't hire him, it's a loss to the organization. And we will look at how we can influence the candidate to join us. And there are some very interesting ways that we will look at how we can do that. If it is a wrong hire, then I think if you hire him, it's a loss to your organization because he's not able to contribute. And I think if you don't hire, it's the right decision. So we'll see how we can avoid this implication in our own organization. Yeah. So again, I think the next question, I think what preparations do you make prior to organizing an interview? When I was running this program, for many of our clients, and you can tell me whether I heard is right or not. So they said that in reality, there is not much of preparation that most people do. Most of them, pick up the resume at the last moment and try to go for the interview. Yeah. So I think not prepare. Anybody else who really disagree with me that in general people try and do, any thoughts on that? That are they, yeah, are they doing enough preparation? Yeah.
Yogesh, that is the sad reality. Nature of the recruiters do not study. They just go with a resume that comes in there.
Yes, 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 yes. And that is where I think this program, and while we initially, when I was like doing this program for some of the clients, and some of the participants were very candid in sharing with me about this, and when they started knowing the whole framework, it became so joyful for them. They started enjoying this preparation, and hence when I am going to take you through this, it is not a very painful journey. And once we tell people about how to do that, so what we have done is that we have really put this in a very structured manner, as you see on the screen. So if you look at the whole process, we have divided them into three parts. Okay, the first part is reviewing the resume in alignment with the job description and competence. And that is where sometimes in many organizations, the issue starts, because if we don't do this program together, with everybody, because JD or like somebody else makes the JD, and then the website where you're posting your thing is with somebody else. Competency definition is done by some other group which does not match sometimes with the job description. The resume that comes is not able to align to all this. So we also, it's a one-time effort, and we sometimes even help our clients to streamline the JD and competencies. So it's a one-time effort. We have got people who can help you with that, and then structure the questions using STAR technique. So STAR is not a new technique. While I know that it is quite popular in the world of recruitment, but still, I think when I ask people, they have heard about it, but they have not been using it as actively. So we thought before the interview, you will have to prepare, the STAR questions. Yeah. So look at the JD, look at the competency, look at the resume, look at the alignment, and then prepare STAR question. Because if you prepare the STAR question and you go with the STAR question, you can almost 80 to 90% of the time know whether the candidate is genuinely worked on that particular area, or is he talking about something which was not his direct contribution, but he just was part of the team. So you start narrowing down the conversation using the STAR technique. And then during the interview, there is a nice attract model, which is like everything that would happen in the conversation, starting with your own appearance. Are you also dressed up well? If you're doing a interview virtually, how good are technologically ready? Talking about a silver. I'll take you through in detail each of these elements. So it is also an acronym, but it's also an to attract the talent. So we'll go through in detail, and then we look at the Robert Cialdini's principle. So I think this book that I think everybody should. So Humble Inquiry by Suzanne Cain. So Sarai, you can write the name of the books so people can make a note of it. So Humble Inquiry by Edgar Sheen is a very good, people should read. And this Robert Cialdini's book of The Psychology of Persuasion. It's a very beautiful book and a great work by our professor from Harvard called Robert Cialdini. Now, these principles are like used in many areas. It could be used in your customer interaction. You can use it in influencing your employees. You can use it also to hire people, which is very interesting because I don't think I have seen many training organization bringing Robert Cialdini into this. So we also learn from our clients. So this essentially came from one of our clients that they suggested that they had gone through an ELP program, and they said, can we use the Cialdini principle for hiring? And that is where we added the after part, and it is very interesting. So if we start with the first part, like the resume, job description, competency part, you can see, I think, while it is a one-time effort, or maybe once in few months you have to visit that, but it is worth looking at the job description in detail, so that there is no disconnect between what we want to hire, the resume we are getting. Because imagine the enormous amount of time that goes in, by spending people time on matching the resume with the wrong description. Yeah. So one question for all of you: do you think the past behavior is a predictor of future behavior, and how? And I would like, more people who haven't had the chance to speak also to unmute their, device, and there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever you think. Yeah,
Yogesh ji,
yeah.
so obviously when we look at a resume and
Yeah.
you see that a person is frequently changing job,
Yeah.
so that is always an indicator that so the past behavior is always something that you look into it, and
Right.
the person has been inconsistent or there have been too many employment gaps. So you
Yeah.
definitely don't look into those kind of resumes for sure.
Very nice. Very
So
nice. Very good answer, Rashmi. This is like a clear-cut case of, no, we will not even possibly look at him. But I wanted to maybe look at somebody who is okay, meaning you want to hire, but yet how do you really predict, that in future he would be same. And I think again Indrajit also raising. So maybe Rashmi, you can respond, and then Indrajit can
Yeah.
also share his answer. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So yeah, you also look at the growth aspect of the individual. So say an individual has been there in an organization for 5 years and has not had any growth or has had very minimalistic growth. So you also tend to inquire why that growth is less. So maybe that person has not performed well.
Right.
Because if you're seeing resumes from the similar organization, then you know what kind of growth pattern people have.
Right.
So that
Right.
is also a judgment of past behavior, which helps us predict on the
Very
work pattern.
Very nice. Brilliant. Brilliant. So Indrajit.
Yeah, I think I have a different perspective to what Rashmi mentioned.
Hmm.
I think while what she said may be correct, but not necessarily, because it's possible that a person is working in a number of different organizations but unable to find the right fit, and there would be a lot of people who, when they do find the right fit, would probably work for a much longer time than in any of the other previous organizations. So I think it's not accurate to stereotype a person that just because they've worked short stints in a lot of organizations means that they are not dependable. So that's one perspective, and the other perspective I think is all human beings are learning machines. We are learning all the time, and therefore if there are people who are willing to spend enough time to make changes on themselves, then it's not necessary that what you've been in the past is what you will be in the future. I strongly believe that it is possible to improve on yourself and be a better version. So even if you've had certain things that you've done in the past, you can always do different in the future. So I think we should evaluate people based on our understanding of who they are right now. Of course, use indicators from their past to evaluate, but not typecast them. That's my
Right. Very nice. I think every time I think Indrajit, we do this webinar, there's so much of learning for all of us because Rashmi has a nice perspective. You have given a nice counter, and I can see Saurin also wanting to add something. So Saurin, please.
So somewhere I do agree with Indrajit that that's the situational based, because if we narrow down only to one path of saying the changing of my jobs because of shorter durations is just one situational. However, see, it is predictable somewhere. I feel that your past behavior always helps to predict how it will go in the future, right? It's like a product survey that we do in market, right? Which product will go more, and how you can increase the value of that individual product is always depend on the how acceptance was overall. So in a human being also it's the same. And also if you go with the psychological background, you first need to understand the history, a genetical, a DNA of a person, and then you can predict more how that's going to be behavior. So it's more related to the psychological gimmick there, and we need to know the history or the past behind it. We can predict somewhat how this individual, just to give an open-ended examples, then the behavioral side, right? Excellent performer, but 2 or 3 instances where has been sacked from the job because of the attitude and behavioral issues, then probably we have to have a check there. So that's one of the view that I hold here.
Very nice, very nice. So, Zain, very nice. I think all these are very, very helpful. Our idea when we were thinking about this is like alluding toward the competency part. And when you look at the competency part, there are like many definitions of competencies, and even to like whatever you shared and to really know about that past, I think knowing the competency for that particular role is very important. And many a times I have seen that we don't make enough distinction between the levels of what we want to hire. So for a same competency like as basic as planning and organizing, many of our hiring managers don't have the distinction that if I'm hiring a mid-level manager, what kind of competency and behavioral indicator I should look at versus a entry-level person versus a general manager. And hence when they don't have the distinction themselves, they are not able to really look at the past behavior with that lens. And when they're not able to look at with their lens, there are two things that might happen. One is that they might miss out on something that you have missed a candidate, or you could hire somebody that possibly has not done those parts. Our idea behind putting this element was to start into that thinking, and how do you translate those to behavioral indicators. And many times we have seen in many organizations that I think there is quite a bit of duplication in the behavioral indication when you're looking at competency. So when we do the real workshop for our clients, we really try to bring in some of the data for the workshop. And we have seen in almost every other workshop that we have done is that there is a duplication, there is not enough clarity of how people would actually look at that. And I'm just giving you one example of this, which is like a competency and behavior indicator for a planning and organizing competency, where if it is a junior level versus a mid manager versus a senior manager, so how do you really have those indicators, and those indicators can be now combined with the resume and then use the STAR technique. So I am slowly. So if you look at the senior manager, you're like looking at utilization of resources. Whether so when you look at the resume and when you look at the STAR, which I'll just talk about, you are then actually asking the questions about these. So you're getting very systematic about asking. But if you are looking at somebody who is like a mid manager or a junior manager, these indicators are very good indicator for you to now start asking the right question. And the past behaviors analysis then become more accurate versus we not really going through all this that we spoke about so far. I know that there is some groundwork that has to be required, but I always feel that it is almost like an effort that you do periodically. So do start doing it one time, and then even if you visit once a year, I think it's more than enough. Yeah. So then we basically look at the quality of questions, and I know that the quality of question is will determine the quality of answer. And if you look at this question that we want to prepare, I do saw in the initial opening where we talked about how do you really hire people, and I did say people talk about you look at the will and then you train them for the skill. So you have this. So we are trying to now start getting into details as to how will you create questions for competence, how will you create questions for motivation, how will you create question for even culture. So any thoughts on or any experiences of creating a culture question in the interview? And in my experience, when I put this slide up, most people say that I think we spend most times on competence and motivation and so much on culture. So any thoughts on anybody who has really thought about culture as also a deeper element before hiring, and what kind of questions do you generally think about? And I can talk about something that, in my experience in one of the large IT companies where I had worked, where I had a set of questions that I would always ask, the candidate on the culture side. And I've had many situations that I was glad that I asked that question. And it was so nice with the participant that the participant said that, no, I don't think I'll fit into this type of setup because I really need the freedom to decide. And if it at that level, if you think that I will always have to follow a guideline and a process to the T, then I might not be the right person for these kind of roles. Any thoughts on cultural fit, or maybe even the others? Yeah, Arunima, please.
So, Yogesh, cultural fit is a major thing that I definitely check on when I'm interviewing.
Yes.
One, of course, is the organizational culture, which is a very macro view of what the organization is working towards. And there are questions around that, like someone in the chat said, maybe not a specific question, but questions adding up to it, like situational,
Yeah.
trying to get to know something from the past or what the present culture of that person's organization is.
Very nice.
Other than that, it then bifurcates again into your own team's culture, HR
Yeah.
culture, and then my own team's culture. So there are
Very
like
nice.
various levels of culture fitment that a person will have to be assessed around. And
Very nice.
these are purely situational questions where I assess as to how would the person react in a situation if put in a situation which is very typical to our kind of an organization. And
Very nice.
typically those kind of situations give you an indication what the reaction is going to be. So instead of being a complete yes or a no, is the person actually going to adapt to the situation as well?
Yes.
Instead of just saying that, this is really not a culture fitment unless and until it's staring you in the face that it's a complete culture misfit. But there
Yes.
is no black and white when it comes to culture fit.
Yes, yes, yeah. Because in that short period of time, there is so much only you could do because you already have the other two components who's taking space for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Well, but very nice, Arunima. Thank you so much. Yeah. Soren, I think you had some more thought on this. Yeah.
Yeah, so majorly we check on the situational based, the questions when we talk about the culture.
Yes.
So, frankly sharing, one of my previous organization had more of the toxic environment, right? So we used to keep the cultural questions like how the pressure. So we used to build up the pressure, management, harassing, putting it more into a situation where he has to, quit or break through that. So that gives us whether he'll able to survive the managers that he's going to work on.
Right,
So
right.
that is, of course, from the negative side of the cultural example I'm giving, but then that's how we used to do it.
Yes, yes, yes. In fact, so here is I'm alluding to the STAR technique, which some of you may have heard about it, but I have seen in my experience that many people don't really use this. Yeah, Nishit, you wanted to share something on the earlier one? Yeah.
No, I said for us as well, it's very important that we ask some of the open-ended questions just to understand whether the candidate will fit into our culture or not.
Yes.
So we generally ask those challenging questions where, we ask the candidate that, where will he, which environment he will thrive the best, right?
Yes,
Or probably, share a story where you had a conflict with one of your colleagues in the organization, and
yes.
how would you handle that? So that probably will give us an idea in terms of whether he fits into our culture or not. So
Yes.
just to cut the long story short, we
Yes.
predominantly depend on situational and open-ended questions to
Very
determine that.
nice. So in fact, this is a STAR technique that we have that I was talking about. So now if you look at the STAR technique, so see, so far what we have covered is a very systematic approach of looking your job description, looking your competencies, aligning the resume with the competency. So you are systematizing the earlier process, and then now you are building the STAR question. So STAR is like situation that related to the competency. So if you are interviewing the mid-level manager versus the entry level versus the senior manager, what kind of competency behavioral indicator that you're using in the question. Yeah, many times you would see in the interview that people give a very answer which is like, if the team has done that, they almost take the credit on themselves that okay, I'm not necessarily saying that I did that, but that is how they present themselves. So if you look at the specific task that was undertaken, and that is where you start narrowing down to also asking for the actions that they took and some kind of obstacles that they face and what was the result. And the learning is also a very important element of STAR, which means that gives you an idea of this person who essentially is somebody is trying to learn from the obstacles or is just completing that. So this preparation helps you to be very systematic in the approach that you take. And here is like a very nice example of how if you have to hire a customer service representative, instead of just like, so you can start with this first question of what's your approach to dealing with an angry customer, but you can see how the example goes and prompts the person to not be very generic about the answer and not very short about the answer in terms of what was the specific situation, what was the context, what was the problem on hand, what was your goal in this situation, what specific actions did you take, and how did you handle the concern, what was the outcome of this action, so you are basically like going very well prepared and going systematically to apply this. So I think many times when we do this workshop, people tell me that it's a nice reminder for us to go back and look at many of these areas that we have not been really paying attention to. And there are many advantages of this. It becomes very factual. It gets to accuracy. It saves you a lot of cost, because imagine of the wrong hire, it saves you time also, because you are almost more prepared than going many places to make a judgment and be very hazy about that. And sometimes I think it also helps in legal situation where the data is very nicely organized, and also if you build in efficiency, because the same, if there are multiple levels of interview, the star response can help the next level make a decision much faster. Yeah. So we covered the first part, which is the before part, and you can see like how much of work is required before part. And then now we are looking at the during part, which means what do you do and what is the kind of experience that you're giving to the candidate. And I think in my experience, many of these areas I have personally not found the recruiters giving a great experience, and it takes you through many things in terms of appearance, technology readiness, talking about the silver bullets, relating. I'll go through in this in detail one after another, but this is a very beautiful model that you can share with your your HR teams or your hiring managers to break it down the whole experience. So first is the appearance part, and many a times I have seen and I know my son who is working for an IT company in Indore, and he was saying me that one of the reasons that he chose this company was that the whole experience of recruitment was very nice. At that time, when he was appearing for multiple interviews, and he was saying that many HR would not turn on their own cameras, and if they would turn it on, they were like in like round neck t-shirt, and you could almost see that they have not been formal. And what is the impression that you carry? And it may be a very small point, but I think somewhere in the mind of and it also depends on the type of if you're a startup, it's okay to, I mean, if you think it's okay that you want to build that, it's okay. But in general, if you are like a non-startup corporate and you want to like your appearance also matters, that what kind of candidate you want to attract to that. Yeah. Second is technology etiquette. So many times like now it is okay, people have got quite used to this whole Zoom, Teams and all that, but I have seen many times the link is not there, or the candidate cannot join, or you are not on time, or if it is in-person interviews, we also talk about the infrastructure readiness. The candidate is waiting for time, and people have not organized, they can't find a room where they can meet, they're running around, and these are all adding up to the experience. And I'm talking about the candidates that eventually are great candidates who you want to hire, but some of this experience can really impact the whole decision that they're making. Yeah. This is a very interesting readiness that one should have. Like, what are some of the silver bullets? Why should somebody join an organization? So for example, if I were to look at Crossover as an organization, if I were to hire, we don't hire as many as some of the large companies do, but even if I were to hire a niche person in my organization, so what would be my silver bullets compared to many large multinational training organizations? So maybe my silver bullet would be that we are somebody who create our own models, our own content, whereas an international brand, the content comes from maybe US or some other country, so you don't really have a scope for enough creativity. Now, I am not bad mouthing the other competitor, but I am telling the person, because if the person is really very creative person, this is a super silver bullet for me. We talk about access to our management team, or it's a very flat organization where whatever you like can be moved very fast. One of our values is agility. So you talk about that silver bullet. So many times what I have seen and experienced in the workshops is that if I ask the people, what are some of the silver bullets of your organization? And I have seen that people are not very readily able to say that, which means if you can't say that to me in the classroom, how will you say that to the candidate? So this is a very important exercise that we do on what are silver bullets without bad mouthing the competition. And connected to this, the next part is relating their experience to the open role. Yeah. So, for example, you can combine the silver bullet. So, in this case, I was hiring, one candidate who came from a fashion industry, and I really wanted to hire her. And my idea of hiring her and looking at her experience, she was not very sure that will she be a good fit in the content team. And I said to her that, see, fashion industry is also all about creativity. Yeah, and my open role for you in content team is also about creating creative content. So what I have done is that I have instead of just saying that, oh, you join and we'll see, don't worry about it, and that is one way to respond. The other way to respond is really relating their experience, seeing that how they can bring the value to the open role. Yeah. Now this is coming because you've started to use Star, you've done all this groundwork, and you're at a point where you started to see that, oh, maybe I can hire this person because I think, everything else is fitting in really well. The responses to Star are coming. And here is where you're relating that experience, because that is where you start seeing the candidate now saying that, boy, this is the place I want to start coming because I am seeing a difference. I am seeing that my experience has been thought through by the hiring person, which means he's already thinking about my success here in the organization. Yeah. Then I think you are, as we talk about the Star questions, you are, in the attract, it's an acronym. So here also we are using A for asking and evaluating using Star technique. And then I think converging and concluding, and in both ways, I think many a times, we see that if you don't want to hire, almost many people completely, cut down the conversation. They almost don't want to spend any more time with the person. And in my experience and my request to all the participants today is that I think even if you don't hire the person, you really still want to give him a very positive experience working with you, because they are the people who can actually go and be your ambassador in the market. So as a professional, I think many a time there is a tendency that the moment you find the candidate is not fitting in, we almost cut down the conversation. But I think we will have to look at converging and concluding in a very, very positive way with a last thing, which is the thank you part, which is always the magic word before you do that. So this was the attract model that, kind of, is the during experience. I'll take a pause here before I go to the after part. Any thoughts, any reflections so far? Yeah. Anybody? Yeah. Yeah, Nishit.
Yeah, I think thanks, Yogesh. I think relevant points. These are certain things which are basic, which we know back of the mind, but we don't tend to follow it
Yes,
either because of our own work schedule or whatever you name it.
yes,
Right?
yes,
But
absolutely.
good that you reiterated it. I think if we can structure it down and follow that, that will really help us.
Yes, 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 absolutely. And at the end, I will just like ask you guys to take a photo of the last slide, which itself is and if you can print it and put it in a couple of cubicles, is a great reminder, and look at it before every interview. I think you will automatically, go and say that, boss, I think I should, because ultimately, if you look at the time pressure, Nishit, that I always tell my participant that, where do you spend your time is, like either you spend time in, releasing the guy who you hired wrongly and hire a new person, or you spend time now to hire the right person. And the cost of doing this is much lower than the cost of the other way around. Yeah. Yes, I can see Indrajit also sharing. Yeah, interview. Yeah. Plan ahead and allocating enough time. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think Indrajit, people don't realize that it may sound that it is too difficult to do that, but in long run, it's really worth doing that. Yeah, very nice. Thank you so much. So we will now move to the last part, which is the also very interesting part, which is the after part. And I haven't seen many people really using this in a very systematic manner, and that is where I thought that I should bring it up, in the webinar. So, if you have read this book by Robert Cialdini called The Psychology of Persuasion, it's a book that is culture agnostic, which means that all these 6 principles work across cultures, which is a very interesting finding, by Robert Cialdini himself. And he's one of those guys who has spent like close to 27 years only researching one topic. So he's a fantastic guy. You can YouTube on him. There are some very nice videos that he talks about. But in the context of hiring, there are 6 principles, and we also call it as scalar, SCALAR, just for you to remember easily. And there is no certain sequence for that, which means you could use any of these in any ways that you would like. Yeah, and I'll also not go from the top to bottom. I'll just pick up some to talk about it. So, for example, when you're hiring somebody, and you want to use the principle of authority, which means if you're an IT company and you want to hire somebody at a senior technology level, if you can tell the candidate that so for example, if I am hiring Indrajit, and I would say, Indrajit, hey, Indrajit, would you like to meet Gangadhar, who is our architect at Crossover, and maybe you can have a discussion about our products and what the future roadmap looks like. Now, the moment the candidate speaks to somebody who is at that level, they get started to get attracted to joining, because now they've got some much more authentic or much more acceptable details, which even if a recruiter does, it may not have that level of impact versus. And this should not be a very long 2-hour discussion. It could be just a 10 minutes, 15 minutes call with a senior person. So if you really want to hire somebody, you have decided, take this step of connecting them with somebody of that field, because authority is, and there are many examples that in the book that you will read on authority. Liking, so people tend to like and trust those who are like themselves. So for example, I like if I were to hire somebody from Mumbai, if I talk about Mumbai, because I'm also Mumbaikar, I was born and brought up in Mumbai, the candidate will have a different inside connection with me, because I'm talking about common interests, common experiences. So this is a very conscious attempt that I am making with the candidate to influence the person. That is liking. Yeah. Social proof, which means and I always give this example. So for example, Kamal is here, one of my very dearest customer, and whenever I go to Pune, she takes me out we go out for lunch or dinner. So assuming I am in Pune and Kamal says, yeah, chalo lunch pe chalte hain, and we look at Zomato and see what are the rating of 2 new restaurants. Both are like 4.8, and we decide to go there. But we see in one of the new restaurants, the people are like only 2 or 3 people sitting. And the other restaurant next to that, which is also a new restaurant, there are about 20 people. The chances are that me and Kamal will go inside that other restaurant, second one, because human beings like what other people do. They do, it's called social proof. Now, how do you use this in recruitment? If you tell the candidate, hey, we have like 5 new hires, from Mumbai and the same Mithibai college who have joined us. Suddenly they'll say, "Arey boss, chalo 4 log join kiye, let me also join this organization." Yeah, so you're using, so now this data is already there. It is not there is new for you. You have the data in your recruitment already there. Yeah. So what you're doing, you're basically using this to take advantage of this data that you have. Yeah. Similarly, if you look at commitment, so here basically what happens is that when you're asking a candidate, to respond on an email or on a call, if a human being says yes to an email, the chances are that they will actually, and since we don't have so much of time, I'm not giving you the medical example, but when you read the book, you will see that how a human being, when they say yes to something over a media, or say, signing a acceptance of offer, the chances are very high. Scarcity, which is a very common influencing principle, like hum bolte na ki, if there is a sale for last 2 days and you see people flocking to the mall and the same sale keeps coming every 2-3 months. But psychological scarcity is that you tell the candidate that in the recruitment is getting closed by 15th of December. So it would be great if you can decide before that. You might extend the date future, but scarcity is also important. Last is reciprocity, which means if the candidate is coming from a other city, if you give them some help on say rental agent's number, if you ask them what is your plan to courier the material from your city, or any of these, is like you're helping. And I know that people do this, not that the recruiters or HR don't help people, but I have not seen this in a very systematic manner. Only sometimes when a candidate is asking for help, the HR help. But what I want to propose to all our participants today is use this reciprocity principle to your advantage, and you will see that if you do these 4-5 things proactively, there is a high chance that the candidate will join you. So these 6 principles that I just spoke about can be used in any sequence, can be used any number of times, can be used, not all of them together. You can use some of them, some of not. But I want you all to start practicing these 6 principles. And for one of our clients, we've been tracking this for last 2 years. And we have seen that there is a remarkable improvement in the number of people joining versus no show. Because the 6 principles are, in fact, some cases I have seen the client saying that the candidate literally called the HR, when they finally didn't decide to join the organization, 3 days before the joining date, and almost so apologetic that, they had some personal constraint to not take finally. But the point was, this HR then was able to, plan something as an alternate, or it was not a problem on the day of joining. Yeah. So I'll take a pause here. Any questions, anything on the after part of the 6 principles, anything that you want to ask me? I can maybe unshare also for a minute, anything on the 6 principles of Robert Cialdini to hire. Yeah. Hey, Arunima. Yeah, Patricia is saying thumbs up.
An interesting point that occurred to me about the liking part of it. There was one point on liking or sharing interest, something
Yeah.
like that. So I think while people like to kind of see, if you could reshare the slide, Yogesh, because
Yeah,
I think
I'll
one
sure.
statement that
I was looking at Kamal thumbs up because Kamal is ready to take me to another restaurant when I come to Pune. Kamal.
So when we say people tend to like and trust those who are similar to themselves, this is, I've always taken this as a double-edged sword, because while this can actually lead to a lot of great conversations, there is also a risk that the interviewer has of getting swept away and hiring the person, because we always love, okay, maybe not love, but we always prefer hiring people who are like ourselves, who are mirror
Yeah.
images, and which is like the worst mistake ever. As per me, again, it's my opinion.
So Arunima,
So will
आप
this be a double-edged sword as per you?
crossover कौन इतना समझते हो? You know that my next thing is about unconscious bias.
Yes, this was supposed to be, my statement was supposed to be a segue into that. So what is your opinion on this? Would you think this is like a double-edged sword? Which
It
like,
is.
it
It
is,
is,
right?
for sure. Like for me, I must tell you that I always take granted, or that every Mumbaiker is a time management expert, or every Mumbaiker is as committed. But in reality, that may not be the case, and you may just like a Mumbaiker and hire him. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but here, our idea was to, use this principle in an advantage that, assuming that the candidate has got 3 offers, and he knows that, for example, I am a Surge Yoga meditation practitioner, and if somebody who's also a meditation practitioner, if I'm hiring in my team, I would surely bring that up in the conversation, because these are some of the things that will eventually, like I heard Sorin talking about, some toxic environment, and maybe all around the pressure that all of us are going through is much higher. So if there are certain areas that they find that, oh, yeah, actually, he is also meditator, I am also. Maybe there is a element of the person thinking that maybe my life will be better working with this manager. Yeah. Or I am a cricket buff, or I am, Toastmaster champion, or I am a yoga practitioner. So knowing something that the other person also knows can definitely swing the person in our favor to take it up. So
Got it. Yes, yes,
the
you're
damage
right.
is, yeah, so the damage is like, yeah, it is there, but it's worth, trying the double effort. And not using this is like really not to our advantage.
Got it.
Yeah, and it is so beautiful. This client that we are working for 2 years, they have been like using the authority principle so vividly that almost every product head is now spending, at least 45 minutes a week for recruitment. And see the power of all this. See, what then happens is that they are now able to, talk about the competency definition, behavioral indicator, job description, because there is solid connection that is starting to build between the businesses and the HR team. Yeah. Otherwise, many a times also, when the product head has spoken to somebody, in future, they also give us a lot of inputs to the HR that maybe I spoke to this guy, but if you were to look at something like this, it would help us in long run. So there is also a subtle way of me connecting the businesses with HR with this whole, 6 principles. But otherwise, it is very, very powerful to do that. Yeah. And I think as Arunima gave me a nice segue, I have a quick question for all of you. And this is a very nice answer. And I know you all are like real talented in this webinar. So, मुझे quickly बताओ कि, how many triangles that you see, and whoever is quickest in getting the answer will get free cable from RR Cable by Sovereign. अगर आप नया घर बना रहे हो तो Sovereign, can you show that? Yeah, Akshay Kumar. So quickly, how many of you can tell me how many triangles are there in this? You can put it in chat also quickly. Okay. Bala said 8. Okay. Shrestha said 1. Okay. 11. Okay. Sonal is saying 8. Okay. A lot of people are saying 8. Na? Preeta is saying 4. Okay. Kamal, आप बोल रहे हो 1. अच्छा. Okay. इंद्रजीत, क्या बात है? इंद्रजीत हमारा चैंपियन है. Indrajit, I know you gave me a direct message, but Indrajit, you want to unmute and share your answer with all the people, actually.
Yeah, I think, this image depends on our perception to complete the lines that are not there. If I just take it on face value, there is no
Yes.
triangle on the screen. We have to use our perception to assume that the incomplete lines are there, that the white space is a triangle. So all of those are unconscious assumptions in our head that we are using to complete the picture.
Very nice. Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah. So I am sorry, those who gave me 8, 16 and all that answer. Yeah, actually there is no triangle here. Yeah, and now if you look at it, what the way Indrajit described, you will find no triangle there. So Kamal, ek bhi triangle nahi, not even one. And that is the unconscious bias. And I know there is never a clear-cut, answer to unconscious bias. Our brain, can receive so much of information all the time, but it can't process so much of information. So hence, I think there is a very important, play in unconscious bias all through the, recruitment cycle. It could happen before, and we have got many experiments that we do in the one-day workshop where we talk about, if somebody's, her name is Komal, वो कोमल को आप कभी फैक्ट्री में हायर करोगे ही नहीं. If just the name is Komal, can you imagine? Because in your somewhere in your bias you say Komal cannot do a factory job, or a person like Shamsher Singh, is like you might find him, you might think about him as a 6-feeter, 85 kgs, very big, tall personality, but maybe he's like hardly 4. So you are saying that this play of unconscious bias can happen, and there are like, it comes from our experiences, religion that we follow, the media that we are exposed to, the values that our families have, friends have. So it will come from all the places. Yeah, and there are like these 5 very common biases that that are there in terms of when you look at Arunima, that you shared about the earlier part on the on the influence part. Some of these actually also connect. So affinity bias is like the opposite of the liking part. Similarly, confirmation also, the moment we start liking a candidate, all our questions are towards getting the candidate in the organization. And again, I go back to the preparation that we did. So when we have the pre-work done, in terms of our STAR technique, in terms of our behavioral indicator, many of these biases can come under control, because the questions are driving then the conversation versus the conversation in the go. And we have had like extreme cases where I think some of the hiring managers did not do any groundwork, and they just got swayed away by the unconscious bias, like the halo effect, the stereotyping, the availability of information. So these are, and if you Google on unconscious bias, there is super research available on this, and we have to be very mindful. And when we created this whole approach for all of you, this is really something that as humans we can't completely remove that, but this whole process of preparing before, looking all this, during, being conscious of that, and after, can minimize this bias. Yeah, so we have to constantly build our awareness, keep pausing and reflecting. When you go for an interview, like I have my own chart that I keep it printed and remind myself that if it is a Mumbai candidate, don't go get biased about that. Be very conscious. Or if it is from some other city where I think that there is a stereotype about that city, don't go with that. And if we keep practicing that, we can really transform and become great hirers. Yeah, and I'm again bringing back this particular framework so that you can take a picture of this, you can take a printout of this, and you can try and practice this, bring in some of these learning to your organization, make it even better whatever you're doing. Yeah, so from a time management perspective, I'm right around 5:15, so I will give you some time to capture the picture here, and then we'll have like 10 minutes of a little bit of conversation, whatever you want to share with me, whatever you had about the program. Yeah, so I'll close and unshare, and you can turn on your cameras, and you can have like 10 minutes of open, and then I think 5:30 we are usually ready to go. Yeah, thanks, Kamal. Yeah, Prasanna.
Hey, Yogesh, I think it's a good presentation, but I have one question,
Yes.
especially when it comes to large organizations,
Yes.
where you realize that the hiring process sometimes is not a conscious hiring, but an unconscious hiring. So how do you, sometimes it could be done because of especially when you do recruitment of freshers or campus recruitment. Sometimes these principles really go for a toss. So I think it's about numbers sometimes that gets driven.
Yes.
Sorry to use that term, but yes, that's a reality at times. So the point here is, so are there any specific inputs would you like to share, or maybe I would like to hear from the other members as well?
Yes.
Mass recruitment. What are the specific things that you would mind to?
So while I request others to share, one just quick input is that I always recommend using a psychometric assessment like Harrison for campus hires, because that can give you a very good indicator of matching that with the role that you're giving. So you could start that as a starting point, and the other part is that while we both worked at the same organization, so my thinking around that is while and that has been my experience so many years, that see, there is a corporate that you're working in, but there is a corporate that you can create yourself within that bigger bubble, so
Absolutely.
I always used to have my own ways of creating my own keeping the respect for the entire organization in place, but having my own checks and balances. So all my hiring managers, I'll give you one example of why was I the most fastest hirer at the organization, because I made an arrangement with the recruitment team. I said, every day first half, these two conference room are blocked for Oracle practice, which means we'll put a label there. I'll tell my team that you will be sitting in that room. When the candidate comes, you just be available to interview. Now, this one small arrangement, which was never there as per the policy.
Yes.
Otherwise, the recruiter gets the candidate, room is not available. Room is available, candidate is there, my hiring
Candidate
manager
is
is
not
not available. Even hiring manager, so it was such a waste of time for everybody, and just a small deviation from anything that was not as a practice really made us hire so fast, So anybody else on the campus hires that, Prasanna was just talking about, anybody would like to share any input?
I can talk about not campus hires, but I started my career in recruitment hiring for BPOs. And we had like, when we would have walk-ins, we'd have some 500-600 people in a day, 700 people in a day. And I completely resonate with Prasanna when he says that what do you actually do? How much of these frameworks can you actually follow when you're dealing with so many people at the same time? So what I used to do and what I got my team to do is that while you may not be able to follow a framework while you're hiring, just keep 3 or 4 basic hygiene points in mind. For example, how much time is the candidate waiting between each round? If there is a lot of waiting time, or set a benchmark for what is your lowest waiting time. If it goes beyond that, update the candidate immediately. Set some budget separately to get maybe refreshments for them in between, because our hiring drives used to start at about 8 and end by 10 p.m. I mean, you're spending your entire one day in an organization. And if that one day you get treated badly, you're never going to come back, however desperate you are. And times have changed now. During our times, we still would have people waiting around till 10 p.m. wanting to know if they've been hired. Now people won't wait around. So, waiting time, be
Very
careful
nice.
about that. Ensure that your interviewers are given CVs before the interviews. Calendars are blocked. These are basic hygiene points that recruitment needs to keep in mind. There are no two ways about it. Simple as that. Frameworks, yes, difficult to follow. Let's not be very, very idealistic. But keep 5 basic hygiene points in mind. I think that will sort out our lives to a large extent.
Very nice. So, brilliant. So when I come to this like webinar, I always find that these are like great reminders for all of us. Meaning, ऐसा कोई rocket science हमने किया नहीं. But I must tell you that these are 18th webinar, and when we talk to people, to seek their feedback, I think most people have said that this really is a great reminder on and a structure around that. So like for example, this before, during, after makes it very easy for you to now follow with a larger team. And I think Preeta, you want to share something?
Yeah. I mean, I would just like to say that basically every organization would follow the 80-20 business model. They will try to match a business is created in any organization, and that's why they are finding and recruiting people. So I guess they will try to match 80% of the organization needs, and 80% was the candidate can offer, and follow that, because they will pay the candidate. The organization will pay the candidate 20% of that whatever business they want to develop in the organization, and get 80% profit. So I think it's a win-win situation where they will only take whom they want. That is my view.
Very nice. Super.
So they will match that.
Yeah, I think I can see. Soren, but Indrajit ने बहुत अच्छा डाला है कि can we have candidate experience? Yeah, I think I think Arunima perfectly. Yes, yeah, very nice, super. Yeah, I think Soren, any thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, just lastly, I think just to add what Madam earlier said also, right? One thing which we do unique for the bulk hiring, what Prasanna was just checking around now, because we have lots of ITI students coming in for our
Yes.
electrical and electrician kind of the job on machines and manufacturing.
Yeah.
One is very unique, which I feel, and what Yogesh ji also mentioned, to create our own, corporate inside our own corporates is we also at the end of the day tell them that out of the entire day, because we also have a plant visit schedule for them, and we tell them that you also can have a turn down the offer if you don't like the organization. So we give them that authority also. It is not one way that only I have to select you. You also have to make sure that as an organization we are right fit for you. So that is one thing that gives them a sense that okay, this organization is also there to hear what I want to tell to them. So that's just one thing that we do differently for a bulk hire,
Very
and
nice.
for everyone for that matter, but that works for our ITIs more.
Very nice. Brilliant. Super. Brilliant. I think good conversation. So generally, people like if we leave them 5 minutes early. Actually, मतलब उनको बहुत मजा आता है. मतलब they like psychologically लगता है यार चलो जल्दी से हमको 10 मिनट extra मिल गया type. So 4:20. I have budgeted my time to 6 o'clock. So I am available, but I am from a webinar angle. I am pretty much that is what I wanted to cover for all of you. And I once again thank because हम लोग generally retention rate भी काफी high है. I'm still seeing like close to 36-37 people still there in the webinar because generally आधे घंटे के बाद वो drop out हो जाते हैं लोग. But I am really thankful for that. And Arunima I met in one of the webinars few years ago. So Arunima, thank you for joining. It was like a reunion, with you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Yogesh.
Yeah. So next January, team, we are planning to do get a very nice expert on alignment. His name is Harish Bhamidi Patik. Kamal knows him. We have done some work for INRIP also. So we want to talk about how do you bring in alignment across the organization. So it would be not like a webinar that we are having now. But it would be like I would be asking a lot of questions to Harish. So it would be like a Q&A session. Again, very interesting. Harish and Sirisha are two partners. So Sirisha also comes with a very strong background. I am Ahmedabad. Harish, similar, COEP Pune. Very great background they bring in and very, very down to earth. Good, interesting, inputs we can have from, and they have a very beautiful dilemma framework that we will bring, in the month of January. So, like it will be usually the third Thursday of the month, bi-monthly. So we'll keep around January 15th, 16th or types. So do join in and keep us encouraging. And if you liked our work, please give us some referral. तो हमको धंधा भी मिलना चाहिए. Yeah, and we always have been getting a lot of work from our existing client. But if you do like us, please let us know. Ridhima is there on the call here. She is our firebrand salesperson. So she never sleeps without responding to every client request every day. So she is there to help us. And thank you so much. I think we were talking about the WhatsApp group. So I think Yogini, thanks for again sending it. So you all can click on this. So you will be part of the Leadership Chaska group, which is a WhatsApp group. So it becomes easy for you to know what's happening. And this topic also will keep sending some good write-ups, articles, videos. So you can stay engaged as you practice. If you need any help on any of these topics that we spoke about, please let Yogini know on the group. And there definitely we post every time when we get the webinar. It's easier for you to also register and share with anybody else. Yeah. So thank you so much everybody and have a nice evening. So Diwali में जो मिठाई विठाई खाया है सब अभी exercise करके कम करना है. मैंने तो 3 kg मैंने already बढ़ाया and today is my daughter-in-law's birthday. तो first birthday after she got and we got a daughter here. So आज हम लोग पूरा धमाल के बाद so we thought that we'll do all kinds of crime till Sunday and Monday से we'll go back to our repenting and recovering actually. Yeah. So thank you. And the one last thing, Andraji, I was thinking I should talk to this group also about the parenting workshop that we have started now. See, we are realizing that in every organization, right, we are promoting people, we are giving lots of salary, everything we give, but we never look at how are they managing their personal front. What is the relationship with their children's. If the relationship with the children is not great, then the relationship between the spouse also gets impacted. So we have created a very nice program called Parenting with Emotional Intelligence. So emotional intelligence is the base, but we have crafted a very beautiful program as a parent where we talk about the psychology of a child. Why does the child not speak to you? Why is he always on the device? So we have found some real interesting answers about how we can handle that. So maybe I think I would maybe plan to do a similar webinar, maybe an ad hoc in between, because we have done 5 workshops so far and the phenomenal response. So we want to also now started to do for our corporate clients, which I know HR might find it uncomfortable because people think that ये तो उसका personal area है, उसमें हमको क्यों जाना है? But I always feel that unless they handle their spouses, their children well, I think it will eventually have an impact on on their work life. So we'll talk about. So I'll schedule one of the ad hoc or maybe in our monthly, bi-monthly session that is coming up. Yeah. So I just thought, मुझे याद आया तो मुझे लगा बता दें सबको.
No, it's great. I think it's important to address it from a psychosocial element because
Yes.
how you are mentally also affects how you work at office
Yes.
and what you take back home after a day's work. So I think
Yes.
if we look at it from that perspective,
Yes.
it's quite integrated into how we feel every day,
Yes.
and therefore a very key element of healthy living.
Yes. Sure. Because Emily was there with me in one of the workshops, so he experienced that. So I thought, yaad aa gaya mujhe. So good. So thank you so much, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you again in one of the bi-monthly webinars. And have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and you too.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Good day.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thanks.